Just a second. Just a second. Okay, great. The embargo has lifted. And now I can start talking about some new stuff from SRAM. They have refined their Force group set. We now have Force Wide. It is fundamentally a tweaked and fattened version of their regular Force for off-road riding. So, let's not just talk about it, let's show it to you, because I got a set. Let's go to the kitchen table. Alrighty everyone, welcome to my kitchen table for my very disappointing unboxing. Now I actually say that as a joke because SRAM has sent me OEM packaging stuff, which I absolutely don't mind. It is just not going to be the sexy type of unboxing that you usually tend to get on YouTube. So let's run through the new and cool stuff. And first up, we have the Force XG1270 cassette. Now this is absolutely brand new. And the full range is 10 to 36. Now this is what SRAM calls their mini cluster construction, which means this is all one piece. And it is of course compatible with their XDR driver bodies. I guess we can chuck this on the scales if you really want. 301. And pairing with this new cassette is the new rear derailleur. And it is, generally speaking, very similar to the one that already exists. But if you turn it over, you will find these markings, Max 36T. And that is a really important part of this new group set development. That cassette has to go with this derailleur. You cannot use that cassette with existing Force derailleurs. This derailleur though is fully compatible with the rest of the Axis range. It has all the other tech you get from the Force ecosystem with the large pulleys and their orbit chain management system. So there you go, the new derailleur and the new cassette. And well, you know, the scales are here, so let's chuck it on. 305. Now we are starting to get really blingy with the Force Axis Wide crankset. There's a couple of big new features with this crankset. For starters, there's the obvious chainring combinations. It is a 43 and a 30. But the thing that is particularly relevant to gravel is that the width of the crank has been moved out by 2.5 millimeters. They've done that to push the chain line further outboard from the bike. It is of course compatible with their Dub bottom bracket as well. And let's have a look at the left side crank. That most certainly is a left side crank. The Dub spindle has also been made wider, which is where the extra width comes from for the crankset itself. And you know what? Let's chuck it on the scales. Right side is 412. Left side is 286. Of course, the next important component now is the new wide front derailleur. And in the same way as the rear derailleur and the cassette, this thing has been made to pair with the cranks. Because the cranks now sit further outboard, the derailleur had to be redesigned to accommodate that. You can mix certain parts of the Force Axis ecosystem together, but the things that always have to be together is the crank, the derailleur, the rear derailleur, and the cassette. You can pair those and mix that with other things, but these have to be together. And here is a completely pointless weighing of it because it's covered in all kinds of other plastic stuff. 168. Now, interestingly, with this new derailleur, part of the reason they wanted to move it outboard was so it could better accommodate large gravel tires. So SRAM say that this one is rated to accommodate 700 by 40C, or 27.5 by 2.1, which are very common gravel sizes today. But the way the market is maturing and the way people are going wider with all their gravel stuff, I mean, I don't know whether that will be a limiting factor in 12 or 24 months from now. I think people are just going bigger and wider on gravel in general, so it'll be interesting to see whether only being able to fit 45 mils and 2.1s is going to be a problem for buyers in the future. Now, of course, the other new thing for this release is the new Paceline rotor. And it's not wildly different, it just sort of has new vents designed into it to, you know, for fairly obvious reasons, optimize cooling, and last a little bit longer. Rotors aren't always the sexiest item, but, you know, they're pretty damn important. So it's good to see a small refinement. And of course they are 160 grams in 160 mils wide. And of course we have the shifters and brakes, which are not actually new, but I guess I should take them out of their packaging anyway. There is the familiar force brake. And of course, the familiar force shifters. And that's about 418 grams for that whole assembly there. Okay, and now for just a quick lightning round of other stuff, there is the chain. Of course, the dub bottom brackets. But what I am particularly excited about is the electronics. And this has always been something that I quite liked about the SRAM ETAP ecosystem. They have a fantastic charger and a nice small little battery. But this is one of the things I really enjoy. Being able to easily charge with this thing. You just drop your battery into this, give it a little click, use a micro USB cord, and you're away, charging your SRAM battery from your computer. I love that. Now, a couple little bonus items from Zip. They sent me their new Explore stem and handlebars, as you can see, in a very handsome silver. Now, I actually asked for silver intentionally because I was kind of just curious to see how it would look. I'm gonna set this all up on my Grove RAD, which is a completely black bike, and with a very stealthy black grip set, I thought, why not? We'll give it a bit of character, put some silver bars on it. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And we're back in the regular spot because I want to talk about a few things around this group set that are particularly interesting. There is, of course, the group set itself. It's fundamentally interesting whenever a new group set comes out. But there is this really fascinating thing going on in the gravel and sort of the broader group set market that I want to talk about. Obviously, the two big players are Shimano and SRAM, and they have extremely different approaches at the moment and sort of for the last 12 to 18 months. On the one side, you have SRAM with their wireless AXS ecosystem. That is amazing. SRAM just really seem to be swinging for the fences with this stuff. It seems to be an approach focusing on aggressive innovation, both for better and for worse. For better, there is an ecosystem of interchangeable parts that all work together beautifully. One of my photography clients is a bike shop, and I go and shoot high-end builds for them, and I've seen some amazing stuff like this build, which is a Eagle cassette and derailleur with a 1x force chainring on it. Amazing. That sort of flexibility is fantastic and so clean and so awesome because it's all wireless and works together. Now, I guess in the for worse category, you've got cost, which I'll come back to later, but there's also difficulty to adopt. This group set needs a new bottom bracket, it needs new free hub for your wheel, and those things add more expense and more complication. And that is one of the costs of innovation. It can be hard to adopt sometimes. The other end of the spectrum, you've got Shimano, whose recent GRX is a refinement. They've chosen to adapt some assets they already had, tweak them a bit for gravel application, and it is really fantastic. But it's not exactly innovative. It doesn't really shift the market forwards in a major way. I think it will dominate the market because it's Shimano, but it's not exactly pushing things. The interesting thing here for SRAM is what they plan to do with this tech, because it's going to be very hard to trickle down these wireless group sets. They're expensive to make. So the next steps are going to be very interesting for SRAM. Are we going to see more mechanical group sets? It's been a long time since they've made a mechanical set, and as interesting as Force Wide is, the cost is going to put it well beyond the use of a lot of people. Now, on the cost, I'm just running the numbers. So that's $1,500 for just the new parts that I've sort of shown you today. The rest of the stuff, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head how much it costs. And that's the price we're talking about here. It's not going to be accessible to every person, whereas Shimano's GRX Mechanical is probably going to be within the means of a lot of riders. And that's the interesting thing. Shimano has always dominated the sort of mid-tier of the market, your Ultegras and your 105 level stuff. The next steps from SRAM are going to be really interesting. Anyway, the next steps for this is to build up the Grove with this new group set. I will be making plenty more content tracking this new product. Got a written article on La Velocita about the full release with tons of information, so head into the description below to see that. Thank you so much for joining me as always. Let me know what you think of the new Force Wide. It is a fascinating piece of tech. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that sort of fun stuff, and I will see you next time.